Welcome and thank you for joining us today on the Heroes and Icons podcast. I'm your host, Greg Randolph. Please find me on Instagram at Heroes and Icons podcast to get updates for great shows like this and others. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe to, review, and share the show. I would appreciate that very much. We have another very special guest today. If you're a baseball fan, especially of the Houston Astros and great minor league affiliates like the Round Rock Express, the Corpus Christi Hooks, and now the San Antonio Missions, this gentleman needs no introduction. He was named the president of business operations for the Houston Astros in May of 2013, becoming one of the youngest team presidents in baseball. His time in Houston included the best stretch of on-field success in franchise history as the Astros captured the 2017 World Series title, as well as the American League pennant in 2019. He was behind the creation of the Astros Hall of Fame, among several other notable renovations and accomplishments, which will be forever felt by Astros fans and Minute Maid Park visitors alike. He grew up in the Astrodome as a bat boy for the Astros, while his father and Hall of Famer Nolan pitched in the Astrodome in the 1980s. He later pitched collegiately at the University of Texas and Texas Christian University, winning 2 Southwest Conference titles. He pitched 2 seasons in the Texas Rangers organization after being drafted in the 17th round of the 1994 MLB Draft. He became the 6th member and first executive to be inducted into the Round Rock Express Hall of Fame in 2019. He was also the executive producer of the amazing and widely acclaimed baseball movie Facing Nolan, which I personally recommend. Fantastic movie. He is the CEO of Ryan Sanders Sports and Entertainment, and obviously, along with his brother Reese, he is one of Baseball Hall of Famer Nolan Ryan's 2 sons. It is a tremendous honor to have you here with me today, sir. My guest today on the Heroes and Icons podcast is, of course, Reid Ryan. How are you, Reid? How is your family doing and all associated with Ryan Enterprises?
Greg, we are doing great, buddy. Thanks so much for having me on today. Life is moving on. Family's doing well. My mom and dad are in their 70s now and playing a lot of golf. They're active, feeling good, and so that's such a blessing for us. My wife and I, Nicole, we're empty nesters now. I've got 2 off at Texas A&M, and I have 1 that has graduated. And so, life is going really, really well. We recently, as you mentioned, purchased the San Antonio Missions with some local business leaders and Spurs owners. And so I've been spending a lot of time in San Antonio as well as Austin and Houston. So, life is good. We're doing great.
Can you bring us up to date a little more present day with what you have going on with Ryan Sanders Sports and Entertainment, and how critical has your brother Reese been to its success?
Yeah, so, I started Ryan Sanders Baseball really with Don Sanders and my dad, Nolan Ryan, back in 2000. And then Reese joined us in 2001 as our CFO. And obviously, he and I are very close. We do a lot of business together. We talk every day. When I came to the Astros in 2013, Reese took over as CEO and really did a great job in growing the business for us. We have a couple different lines. We have sort of the baseball ownership and operation side, which we have the Round Rock Express and Dell Diamond in the Austin market. We built and own the Corpus Christi Hooks, Whataburger Field. We sold that to the Astros,
right, and
now our partners in the San Antonio Missions. And then we also have a boutique hospitality division that runs F&B for the Frisco Rough Riders, the Pensacola Blue Wahoos, a couple of the Dallas Stars facilities, Choctaw Stadium for the Texas Rangers. And we're growing that division. That's really nice. And then one of the things I'm most excited about is our turf division called RS3 Turf. We recently resodded Kyle Field at Texas A&M.
Wow.
We built last year the new field at Reckling Park for Rice. Which is a synthetic NR34 high-grade artificial turf. We've done projects for Mary Hardin Baylor, lots of high schools around the area. We're actually up in Willis, Texas right now building a baseball and a softball field. And so it's going really well, and we're getting to do a lot of cool projects. This summer we worked on the Chicago Bears practice facility, which was really neat, artificial turf project. And so the company's growing, the businesses are doing well, and we're just enjoying getting to work in sports.
Let me ask you this: how far down the line are we with where turf is now compared to what we grew up with in the Astrodome and that AstroTurf?
Yeah, so it's a totally different product today for artificial turf. The product that we sell, which in football is called Extreme Turf, in baseball it's called NR34. It's made by a company called Global, and it is in Dalton, Georgia. So it's an American-made product. It's the highest quality product out on the market. You're talking about 2.5 inches long compared to the old turf, back in the Astrodome that was, like carpet. It had no length to it at all. And then this turf that we use today will have a combination of sand and either rubber, sand, or wood or recycled plastic. And that infill is really in a lot of ways just like natural grass. You've got a couple inches of material that's in the blade, so you can wear metal spikes on it. You can cut on it. Everything acts like natural grass. We have 2 different blades in that, so it's a dual filament system. And it's really a high quality product, and people are migrating to that for several reasons. Sometimes it has to do with the amount of play. Schools and people have so many teams playing, they can't keep natural grass alive. Maybe they don't have the skill set on their staff to be able to maintain natural grass, a groundskeeper or a budget that enables that. Or maybe they're in some place that, has a lot of drought restrictions where they limit watering. And in those cases, the synthetic product ends up being a really good, use as well, and a good decision. So that's kind of what we're doing today. We're agnostic in the fact that we do both natural grass and artificial. Natural grass wise, we've done everything from the Cotton Bowl to Minute Maid Park to San Antonio, Fresno, California. I mean, we do a lot of natural grass projects around the country. But if you want artificial, we're happy to do that as well, and we have a best-in-class product.
No, absolutely. That's really fantastic. It's certainly come a long way from the originations of the Monsanto company with what we grew up with, again with AstroTurf. Let me ask you about some leadership and management things where certainly where you've been directly involved. So what does it take to successfully run a baseball team on the business ops side?
You have to have a good product, and at the major league level, a lot of times that's about the winning and the team on the field. At the minor league level, a lot of times it's about the stadium and the environment that people come into, the customer service that you offer them. Are they getting value for their time? And so we've really built our reputation both as owners and then as an operator here in Houston on delivering great customer service, having a very fun environment, having a very clean environment, giving people value for their time and their money, which goes all the way from the product on the field to the promotions that you give to the concession offerings that you have. And so you have to really look at it as, if I was the customer and it was my time and my money, what am I going to want? And you're competing for a lot of different things out there in the world today, everything from Netflix to other entertainment options that are out in the market. So you better do a good job of embracing people, honoring their time and their money.
And you do a phenomenal job of that. And I've personally had that experience at any ballpark that you've been a part of. So
thank you.
So definitely hats off to you. Let me ask you this, and it's a little bit of a loaded question, but how did you get your start in baseball?
Well, I grew up around the game because my dad obviously was a player, and like everybody, I wanted to be a major league player, and was good enough to go off. As you mentioned earlier, I played at the University of Texas, although I didn't get a lot of innings, and I was a freshman, and I felt like, look, if I really wanted to have a shot to play professional baseball, I needed to go somewhere where I could get more playing time. And so TCU was at the time, kind of middle to the bottom of the Southwest Conference. It was close to Arlington where the Rangers were, and the Rangers pitching coach at the time, Tom House, said that I could work with him. And so we ended up going from kind of a worst scenario my sophomore year to us winning the Southwest Conference for the first time in 35 years, my senior year. And really from that moment on, TCU baseball has been a top 20 program year in and year out with a lot of trips to the College World Series. So that's a really cool legacy for that group of guys. I was fortunate enough to get drafted, played a couple years in the minors, and never had been to a minor league game before I played in my very first one, because I literally grew up in the big leagues.
Right.
And so, from that moment on, when I got out of, playing baseball, I knew that I wanted to work in the industry. And the year that I had spent at the University of Texas, they had attempted to bring a AAA team to town, the Phoenix Firebirds, because the Arizona Diamondbacks were coming into the market. The election failed in Austin, and I had kind of had a front row seat to see what had happened with that. And so from that moment on, I just decided, hey, look, this is a big market. I know the market well. I think we could kind of learn from their mistakes. And, my entrepreneurial chops kicked in, and, I raised the money to go buy a club and passed an election and, sold some naming rights, and man, we were off to the races, and I've been in baseball ever since the late 1990s.
I'm gonna go way back here for a second. I thought for a second maybe you were gonna tell me about the Kennedy Copa shows in the Dome Skeller, or
no, those were lots of fun things that we did. That the Dome was kind of like our own playground where we ran around, because they had a great culture where players could bring their kids and we could hit in the batting cage. And you look at all the kids that came out of there, from probably the best player being Jose Cruz Jr.,
sure,
a major leaguer, to a lot of guys that played in college and got drafted, from Art Howe's kids to Phil Garner's kids, Terry Poole's kids, Kevin Bass's kids. We had really an incredible group of players, kids that not all of them made the big leagues,
sure,
but all of them played, high level college, and played professionally at some level. And every day we were running our own games and our own camps and just having a great time and getting better at baseball.
No, it sounds like a great place to grow up, and especially if you're a baseball fan. Let me ask you this: speaking of growing up in the Dome and everything, how did your dad's influence and being in that environment and being in those areas, clubhouses and whatnot, how did that help create you to become the great baseball exec that you are today?
Well, I think there's great lessons when you're around high achievers, and some of them are you learn through osmosis, just being around. Others, there were times where somebody pulls you up next to them and gives you little nuggets of wisdom. And, the reality is there were a lot of guys that came through the Astros over those years that had a ton of talent that maybe never became good major league players. And you would see themes, whether it was, lack of preparation, whether it was lack of dedication in the weight room or to their body, or to, working on their craft. And then you look at my dad, who, really never stopped working on his craft. So those things were important and had a big influence on me. Also, look, to be successful in baseball, you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Right.
If you've got great pitching, but you can't hit, you can't score, you can't field, then you're only as strong as that weakest link. And so I think an evaluation of your team, and always, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, was something that you end up thinking about all the time in the context of a kid who's a fan of the club. But then you also end up applying that into your own life as you move forward. So, what can you control? You can control being in the best shape. You can control being the best prepared. You can't always control if your team scores runs or not. And so the failure that comes with baseball and the reliance on others in a true team setting, I think, are all great themes for life that I've been able to take into my management skills.
Let me ask you this, and that's very evident in everything that I've seen. I'll let everyone know I was very fortunate to work for you from the Astros from 2013 to 2019, and we did some great things under your leadership. So thank you.
Well, thank you
so much.
You're only as good as your people, and we had some great people, and you were one of them. And we had an attitude of service that literally started at the top and permeated all the way through to those folks that just work games occasionally, our ushers. Everybody bought in, and it was really fun.
No, absolutely. I truly miss the people
Yeah.
that I got to work with. No
Yeah.
question about it. Let me ask you this too. What was something that you specifically learned from your dad and being around your dad in those father son moments at that time?
Excuse me. Really good question. I think the one thing about my dad that's really special is that he treats everybody the exact same. He never, even at his highest height of being cover Sports Illustrated, highest paid player in sports, all-star, Hall of Famer, he treated everybody the exact same. And that really came from his mother and father, my grandparents. My dad's the youngest of six. And people used to ask my grandma, hey, aren't you proud of your son? And she would say, I'm proud of all my kids. And she'd start rolling off all the things they had all done. And so just because he played baseball didn't mean he was any better than anybody else. At the end of the day, we're all human beings, and we're all trying to be the best human beings we can. We all have a role in society and in a team, and hard work should be respected. And his dad worked two jobs, one at a chemical plant and one rolling papers and having a Houston Post distributorship. And hard work is to be honored, and an honest day's work's to be honored. And so my dad's always had that special everyman DNA in him that I think he's passed on to me as well. And as you know, from working at Minute Maid Park, it doesn't matter how much planning goes into it if the guy that is pulling the banner off of, the pennant from the World Series, the rope breaks or it gets hung or they don't have a ladder, then everyone looks bad. And so it truly comes down to every single person in the organization matters. And that's probably the one thing I learned from my dad.
Absolutely. And I'll use the example that I saw. I can't remember where I saw it, but I read or saw that he was not above, at practice and workouts of picking up the baseballs himself and putting them in the buckets and not being above doing something like that.
No, I mean, that's who he is as a person, and he lives it every single day. He would always say, look, I'm never going to ask somebody to do something I'm not willing to do myself. And so, he honored the grind. And, that's kind of a popular word today. But I think it's in those moments of hard work and practice and going through what it takes that keeps you grounded, and keeping yourself grounded is what keeps you, true to the person that you came up as.
No, I could not agree more. I couldn't agree more. That's a great example. Absolutely. So you grew up in California for a bit when your dad pitched for the Angels.
Yeah.
At what point did you realize that your dad wasn't just dad, but that he was Nolan Ryan, all-star pitcher, throwing no-hitters?
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting. Today you can watch every single game on your phone. You get highlights instantly, on Twitter and everywhere else. And every single game is on, television. Every single, like, Little League game now you can find on,
Sure.
on some kind of, streaming service. So a lot of his games were not on TV in the 70s. And they would maybe be on a local TV, but people back in Texas and around the country weren't seeing them. So folks knew my dad played baseball. They never saw him play, because there was no interleague play. He didn't come to Houston.
Right.
And, he might go to Arlington once a year, maybe twice a year, but people in Houston didn't see Ranger games, And so where we grew up in Alvin, people were like, yeah, that's Nolan. He plays baseball. But, nobody really ever sees him play. They didn't get to the playoffs. Back then, there were only two teams that made the playoffs. They knew he had won a World Series in '69 with the Mets.
Sure.
So he had some level of notoriety. But for the people in Alvin, they just treated us like, hey, man, we're just like everybody else. We grew up. Kids went to high school. My parents, their friends, everybody just went to high school together and grew up in the same small town. So we would move away. We would live in California. I'd check into schools out there. We had kind of a set of friends out there from Pee Wee, T-ball, that kind of stuff. But I was pretty young, and I mainly hung out with the other players' kids at the stadium in Anaheim, And a lot of those kids, Tom Seaver had girls back when my dad was with the Mets, and Rod Crew had girls. So there were kind of like not that group of baseball kids playing like I had with the Astros, but we had kids that we hung out with back then.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, do you have any memories of your first time in the Astrodome or attending a game or being in the stadium?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. So my first memories of baseball really had to do with being in spring training with the Angels, and going to the games. I love to, kids will find this funny, but back then they had wax cups. And after the game, I would want to go stack all the wax cups up and then step on them and try to pop them. It made like almost popping bubble wrap. And I'm sure that was a good form of entertainment, for my mom to set me loose. But I think the Astrodome, my earliest memories were just kind of the scale of it. It would just seem larger than life, being the only dome stadium and coming in and looking at it. Sundays were always a fun day because the team didn't take batting practice on the field. And Jose Cruz would always come out and hit us ground balls, or my dad or Matt Galante pitched to us. We'd get to hit on the field, and the gates would open up, and fans would be in the stands, and we'd be out in our little uniforms hitting. And so that was a really, really cool memory I had as a, kind of a 8, 9, 10-year-old back in the day.
Absolutely. That sounds like it was just a great place to grow up and great environment and everything else.
It was a lot of fun.
Can you, let me back up here just a second. So you spent all that time in the Astrodome, and the Astrodome was built in '65 and everything else. And I have to tell you this. I want you to know you're in my personal Hall of Fame for securing the Astrodome's Texas State landmarker.
Oh, cool! Very
Yes,
cool.
Absolutely.
And well, that really was Mike, but I helped sign off on it at the time in my role. Obviously, when you're the president of the Astros, you've got a lot of gravitas, and so it was something that I felt like the club should support, and I'm glad we were able to do it.
What does the Astrodome mean to you personally from that standpoint?
It's super cool because outside of the Coliseum in Rome, it's one of the most iconic stadiums in the world because it was the first,
right?
And the vision was so grand, and it was so Texas. And I can remember as a kid going up in Judge Hoffein's private quarters, and he had, a tilted bar, and he had a shooting, gallery, and he had a bowling alley and stuff that's in this stadium that was multi-level resident, out in the outfield. Only in Texas can you build that type of structure and have that kind of vision, bold leadership, game changing, just like NASA and some of the other things that really have established this state for many, many years. So it's special. It's interesting because where the dome is today, it sits in the middle of this big complex that's utilized all the time. And so I'd love to see it be memorialized and be utilized. But when you're the first, there's a lot of things that change over time. And I went back in a couple years ago, and you just realize how small the concourses were and how few restrooms there were. I can remember those lines being 30, 45 minutes long because, there weren't things like potty parity back then,
Sure.
And point of sale. Literally in the whole bottom section of the dome, lower bowl, there was like 4 concession stands, Minute Maid Park, we were measuring point of sale for every single fan and putting stuff all over the place. So as much as the structure is literally is intact as the day it was built, I mean, it is so over-engineered. It is just literally a bomb shelter that is probably the best construction ever made with that roof. You go look at it. I don't know that there really is an answer to what you do with it, other than try to preserve it and utilize it in some manner. But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen long term? But hopefully one of these days, it'll still be around 100 years from now.
I think it will, and Mike Acosta is doing some great things. He has a project called Astrodome reimagined, and hopefully he's going to be able to really get some great renovations done and kind of get the powers that be on board in those at NRG to sign on.
Yeah, nobody loves the Astros or the Astrodome history more than Mike Acosta and maybe Denman. Those are the two guys. But the hard part is, for somebody in putting on my business hat, literally if somebody had a really good use, it would be like having, one room in the middle of your house that somebody was wanting to try to rent out, monetize, redevelop, because you have NRG that sits next door. You've got the NRG arena. You've got all of the rodeo offices in the parking lots. It's just really tough that you can't pull all that other stuff out. And so I really think until one day, if it ever happens, that the NFL team has another stadium somewhere, and, whether it's a developer or the rodeo or somebody takes over the whole complex and can sort of really make all of that stuff work together, it may be hard to ever see the visions that Mike and other people have, because I just don't know the economics will support it.
That's certainly a fair point, and I'm behind Mike 100%. I'm sure you are as well with everything that he could possibly hope to achieve there. So I'm looking forward to great things happening there. So let me move on to the movie Facing Nolan. You're the executive producer of that. Really a must-watch for any baseball fan. It's just incredibly well done. In making this movie and talking to other Hall of Famers, teammates, managers, friends, and family members, was there anything that you learned about your dad or your family or baseball that had not maybe previously been known or was entirely apparent?
Yeah, I don't think anything really that I learned that I didn't know, but it was very cool to have a perspective of these stories from the opponent. Not from my dad, not from his teammates. So hearing really straight from those folks what it was like to face them, or what would face him, or what was going on in their minds with an at-bat, or the fight, or any of that kind of stuff, I was intriguing, and it was really fun to see. And I think as time has passed, all of these guys have learned to appreciate the greatness of one another, and really the greatness of competition. That's the thing that these warriors, these guys we put on a pedestal, never are able to really fulfill when they step away from it. It's those mano-a-mano battles, and that's the essence of the pitcher. Yeah. He's on the mound by himself with a ball in his hand, controlling the pace of the game, going mano-a-mano, versus every hitter that steps in the box. And it's kind of the beauty of our game. And then getting what they were thinking and how they went about, a pitch count or facing one another. Those were some of the moments that I really enjoyed.
Excellent. And I would be very remiss, I think, if I didn't mention your mom, Ruth, being just very central to the Nolan Ryan story. And if there's no Ruth Ryan, there's maybe no Nolan Ryan in a career.
Well, there's no doubt, and I think that was Russell Groves and Bradley Jackson, the guys that made the movie, the producer and the director, they really had carte blanche on the script and the story. And as we got closer to the first test screening, they were kind of holding the story at bay from me. And I said, well, what's the storyline? And they said, really, this is a story about Ruth Ryan. And I thought they nailed it, because my mom is such a strong woman, and doubt and being away from home and failure, it doesn't matter who you are, they're all hard to deal with. And if it wasn't for her, I think he probably would have hung it up and quit early in his career. But then she also kept him grounded and kept him motivated, and sometimes she hit him with a stick, and sometimes she used some sugar. She knew what he needed in those moments, and also being able to manage the family and keep all of us grounded and active and going to let him be able to go be Nolan Ryan during the season. So they have a special bond, and I thought it really came out in the film.
Absolutely. And the thing that I appreciated too in watching the movie is that in the immediate Ryan family, your mom is far and away the most competitive. Is that?
Right? There's no doubt about it. Yeah, there's no doubt. Tennis, pickleball, Uno, you name it, she wants to win. And look, she's a great tennis player, but now she's taken up golf and she's getting really good at golf. And don't expect the 2-inch putt to be given to you at all.
No, sir.
Because she's hoping you miss it.
I can absolutely imagine that. Let me ask you a few more things here. What is the greatest element of baseball to you? Not only the game itself, but maybe working in baseball.
Look, I think the beauty of baseball is that it's the backdrop really to summer. It's the cadence of summer. And it's one of the few things where families, communities, people can go and have a conversation. Everything we do today is involved with our phone in some way. It's hard to not watch a game and be checking Twitter or looking at other scores on your phone or whatever. But it's the one place where it spans the generations. You sense the game visually, through your ears, through your smells, through talking, through tasting. It has a pace to it that allows for a conversation, and it's a uniter of the community. And I think that's the beauty. And as many people have tried to mess this game of baseball up, I think it's continued to thrive because in the essence, everyone is looking for something that brings their community together that they can do with friends and family in a setting that everyone can have a good time. And baseball still today offers that opportunity for people.
I couldn't agree more. And it's really, it brings everyone together. And to me, it's kind of like I think it was at This Week in Baseball. There's a theme song. It's called Gathering Crowds. Mm-hmm. And that reminds me of that kind of reminds me of that just that great confluence of people and bringing everyone together and passing it down from generation and keeping score and all those things.
And look, as much as changed with, a lot of things and we've been through some rule changes now and some other stuff, people aren't winning 140 games. I mean, 100 games is rare air. Above 500 still gets you a shot at the playoffs. People aren't hitting 400. The numbers really have not changed that much. And that's right. Also the beauty of our game is that someone can respect what 20 wins or 300 or, 40 home runs meant in 1968 as much as they can in 2023.
No, without question. Without question. Let me see. I've just got a couple of
things no problem.
How are we doing on time?
We're good. Yeah, man. We're good to go. Let's see. Have at it.
Okay. On more than one occasion, if I can get it out, you not only led, I believe, but you participated in and you shared your own faith in God for the Astros Faith and Family Night. Mm-hmm. You've done some charity work with, just some really great things, all kinds of things. The Tree of Life baseball camp in Zambia, for example. What does your faith mean to you, and how has God carried you through your career?
So, I've always felt like, and this really goes back to when my dad played with the Angels. I tell people, being in baseball, you're kind of a gypsy. You're moving around all the time, Yeah. And my parents always made it a point, to get us to church for that monthly service, kind of with a wink, wink. We weren't every Sunday, but we went enough to where I had some basis of faith in my life and was starting to build my own relationship with God when in 1979 I was run over by a car in front of our house in Anaheim and ended up spending like 10 weeks in the hospital, lost my kidney, my spleen, broke my femur, and laying in the street, I just was, praying to God, please don't let me die. Please don't let me die. And this is at 7 years old. And 10 weeks in the hospital, in a bed, in traction, in 1979, there's not video games, there's not phones, there's not cable TV. There was jigsaw puzzles and coloring books. And I just truly believe that God saved me for a reason, and that the surgeries I had, that I was destined to do something great, something that he had in store for me. And I've just always had a deep belief that, I was spared for a reason, to make others' lives better. And that doesn't mean I'm perfect at all. No, not even close. I tell folks, I love the saying, church is not a country club for saints. It's a hospital for sinners. And, we all fall. But I think having the belief that, that we don't have to pitch a perfect game, that we are going to come up short, and that's okay, that Jesus Christ died for our sins, and that we will be forgiven. If we truly ask for forgiveness, it's there. And that, our job is to make the world a better place. And so everything I've done, I've tried to do that. Don't pitch a perfect game. I don't always achieve that. But if we can go out and do things, you look at, Round Rock or Corpus or the Astros, I think truly to be happy in life, you have to be making other people's lives better. And I've always felt like, look, it's a divine calling being in this game of baseball, because people truly leave at Minute Maid Park's door or Dell Diamond's door the problems they're having at home or in their life, or the financial struggles. They just walk in that door and they just want to have a good time. They want to feel part of something bigger than themselves. They want to watch people chase their dreams. They want to spend time with their friends and loved ones. And that's a true honor, to get to be in a business that you give joy out on a regular basis. Now, doesn't always happen. You get the drunk in a fight and the two Yankee fan that puts a finger in the guy's, chest, and then we're breaking up a fight. So let's just not say it's kumbaya all the time. But the majority of people that come to the games are not likes to fight guy. It's family guy, and they want to come and have a good time with their loved ones.
That's an amazing answer. That's just right on point. And I think the relationship with Jesus Christ is the most important thing, because we hand raised front of the line. We're all trying. Not all of us, but I think a lot of us try to fill that space in our hearts with all these other things that are down here on earth, mm-hmm. and it never works. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that to me has fulfilled me, is that relationship.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And look, I think we all fight it every day. What I've found in my life has been, every time I've really wanted my will, God has corrected that path. I always wanted to go to the University of Texas and be a Longhorn, and had the opportunity to go. And when I got there, didn't play a lot, wasn't extremely happy, wasn't making great grades, wasn't making the best life decisions, staying out late, running around. And you know what? He guided me to TCU, which worked out better for my baseball career. I met my wife. I ended up meeting some of my best friends. I always wanted to be a major league player. Here I am, drafted, playing in the minors, and have a great year. And then second year, have a terrible year, questioning myself, my value. But guess what? Had I kept playing minor league baseball for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, I would have never started the Round Rock Express, which led to the Corpus Christi Hooks, which led to my dad buying the Texas Rangers, which led to me coming to be the president of the Astros, which has led today to us buying the San Antonio Missions. And how many families, kids, people have got married, met at the ballpark. I had our staff in Round Rock, when I went in the Hall of Fame, give me a deck of baseball cards with like 50 kids in their photos that all their parents had met at the stadium working for us over the years. So you just don't realize the impact your decisions have, and that God has had his hand in guiding me along the way. And so people go, how are you so positive about leaving the Astros? Because we did some unbelievable things. And people are like, you should be bitter. You should still be there, and all that kind of stuff. Well, the reality is that wasn't God's plan. And
same.
And same, what it's like. And so that was a chapter. It was a great chapter. And now I'm on to the next chapter. And some of the positives are my youngest daughter, Ella. When you work as many hours as you do in Major League Baseball, something is always shortchanged. And I did not miss a moment of her junior or senior year, all her sports, all her activities, everything, and built a closer bond with her that will last for life But if I was still with the Astros, I don't know that that would be the case. And so, once again, God's hand in my life, you just have to learn to trust, and it's really hard.
It is hard, and I think just as human beings, we maybe want a lot of our own free will, but at the same time, it's also very easy for me to kind of look back and say, well, okay, what if you had wanted this? Like you're saying, this it's going to work out. You're going to go down this path, but God's like, hey, I've got this path over here for you. It's a lot better, but you got to trust me.
Yep, it's hard to trust. Very hard to trust.
Yes, sir.
Leap of faith.
That's always. So, is there? I just got a couple small things here, and we'll wrap it up.
Perfect. Great.
You still good?
Yeah, 5 minutes is great.
Okay, perfect. Is there one moment in your sports career that maybe stands above the rest? Maybe being a World Series champion with Astros for the first time in 2017, or you're inducted into the Round Rock Express Hall of Fame in 2019.
The things that are the most memorable are winning as a team. So obviously, number one on the list is the feeling from the World Series in 2017. I don't know that there'll ever be anything in my life that is as euphoric and as fulfilling as that championship was. Because I grew up an Astro fan. I grew up in Houston. My dad played. I watched a lot of heartbreak over the years. So it was just the right sizing and the redemption of just a lot of ghost of baseball past, Probably right behind that was in 1994 when TCU won our first Southwest Conference championship, because I had a hand in putting that team together. We recruited a lot of guys from different schools that came in, and just seeing the joy and the sense of accomplishment, the pride, the fulfillment that it brought, not just our team, but alumni, the university, and then the path that it's given the university since then, that's extremely meaningful to me. And so I don't think there's ever anything personal that, has made me feel that way. It's always been around team and, family. So those have been the things. I think the happiness for my dad when they won in 10 and 11 to get to the World Series, for the first time for the Rangers, those were extremely enjoyable moments, because you love your dad so much, how much hard work goes into it. Wish he could have got the 1 and 11, being one strike away. But sometimes things aren't meant to be. It made 17 that much sweeter.
Absolutely. So speaking of your dad, Nolan Ryan, he holds, if I have this number, I hope I have this number right still, 51 Major League Baseball pitching records. Which one of those is the most impressive to you? Is it 383, 57-14, or maybe the 7 no-hitters?
It's a great question. The strikeout one is just pretty amazing by how much he passed it up by. The win total, people will probably pass him, although starting pitching has changed a lot. I'm not sure anybody will ever touch his strikeout record or his no-hitter record. But the record that's probably the safest is that he's the all-time walks leader. Because I just don't think anybody will ever pitch that long and have that many walks. So we may see the game go back around again at some point. But right now with starters, going really 5 innings, most of them, I think one year my dad had double-digit complete game losses. It's really hard to do. It means that the team's scoring no runs for you, and you're pitching so good that you're pitching the whole game, and getting a complete game and losing. So it's a rarity you probably won't see anymore, but I hadn't spent a lot of time, to be honest with you, thinking about it.
Understood. Well, is there a foundation that we can call attention to and have the listeners support today?
Yeah, we've always put everything towards the Nolan Ryan Foundation. We started it in Alvin years ago, really to help with, kids wanting to go to college. Over the years, we have expanded that to mainly scholarships, kids charities, growing youth baseball, and those in need. And so, one of the great stories is this past year, we helped a young man in Round Rock who, unfortunately, at 15 years old, Jay Favors, was paralyzed from the neck down playing football in Round Rock in a JV football game. And he, obviously a devastating career, life-changing event. And during COVID, his mom works at Slotsky's, and their van broke, and businesses were shut down. And for almost 2 years, he never left his apartment. And so we heard about the story. We bought him a van with funds from the Nolan Ryan Foundation. And not only that, we told him we wanted him to come out and be a greeter at Dell Diamond. And today, Jay is one of the most popular employees at the Round Rock Express. In fact, my son is driving him up to the TCU BYU football game, and he has this huge community. He's now a massively productive citizen in society. Folks love him at the game. He has game notes and all kinds of stuff attached to his wheelchair, and he directs people around where their tickets are. And man, he's as important as anybody else on our staff. And so that was made possible through the Nolan Ryan Foundation, through all the people that have given, and really from my dad signing autographs over the years. So anybody that wanted to contribute, those are the kind of things we do with the Nolan Ryan Foundation.
That's some amazing work, and it speaks to the great human beings that your family is.
Well, thank you.
Really, really impressive. So I'll put the link to the website in the show notes. It's a very simple, very straightforward, direct website with how you can contribute to the Nolan Ryan Foundation. Win-win for everybody. There's most likely someone in your family, baseball, whatever, that would appreciate a Nolan Ryan autograph of some kind, and you're helping with a great cause as well. How else can I support you, Reid? Where else can we send the listeners for more information on Ryan Sanders?
No, I'll tell you what, Greg, we're in a great spot. If you want to come see us in Round Rock, come on out. We'd love to have you during the baseball season or in San Antonio. Or if you are building a field, know of anybody building a field, we love to bid on jobs, whether we get them or not. It's a great exercise for us. We have a high quality product. So if your school or municipality is doing something in the sports world, football, baseball, soccer, softball, anything with grass or turf, let us know. We'd love to come bid on it.
Absolutely. And I can't recommend you enough personally. I know you're going to get the highest standard of excellence with anything that someone might want to participate in and be a part of with Ryan Sanders Sports Entertainment.
Well, thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. Enjoyed it today.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you very much, Reid, for speaking with me. What an incredible conversation. I can't thank you enough for being my guest today, and it's always a pleasure to see you. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Heroes and Icons podcast with your host, Greg Randolph. And once more, thank you to our guest, Reid Ryan of Ryan Sanders Sports and Entertainment. Again, please support the Nolan Ryan Foundation, and the link can be found in the show notes for this podcast. Thank you again, everyone, for listening. Have a great night. God bless.